Happy Sunday. Hi, everybody. How's it going? We're just jamming out to some tunes. I hope you're having a fantastic Sunday. We had some camera issues, so hopefully you can see me and you can hear me and all that good stuff. I hope everybody's having a fantastic Sunday. Can you all hear me okay? Just let me know in the chat. I would love to know that everything is working because it was not working when I came in here. So, it's nice to see you, Claudia, and Forever DC. Eric the Blue and Susanna is here. Suzanne, sorry. Lawnmower is here. Fantastic. Good to see you guys. Well, I don't know if you guys saw, but there is a few articles out there talking about the housing bubble, and it's deflating. They're not saying it's popping, but they say it's deflating. So we're going to talk about that. Aloha, Claudia. Aloha. So it's interesting to see how these articles come out. They've been coming out like this, as you know, for the last, since 2020, really, whenever they were talking about home prices rising, and like they were talking about, the housing bubble, when is it going to pop? And, there was lots of people that were talking about the housing crash. And because of this new wave of articles, I think it's important that we talk about what they're saying, what they're not saying, and what the reality of it all is. So first off, not one of them is saying that this is a repeat of what we saw back in my day in the 2007, 8, 9 housing crash. It isn't the same kind of thing. For the first time in probably 5 years, I heard somebody saying they had to short sale their home, and they're actually taking $60,000 less than they paid for it in 2021. And of course, I paused and I'm like, where the hell is she at that she would have to take $60,000 less for her home? Well, come to find out, as I was listening to her, she's taking that much. She's hoping that the bank will accept her short sale because she got into a homeowners association that shortly after she signed all the paperwork, but within like the first 3 months, she got a special assessment saying that she needed to pay into the HOA because they needed to do a bunch of repairs. Those repairs ended up being $30,000. So she just bought a house. She bought her very first home, and it ended up being a condo. She was not expecting a bill in the mail automatically at $30,000. Now, she thought she was going to be able to sue the previous homeowners of the condo, thinking that they knew something about it, which they did not. And the homeowners association they just said that they were going to be doing an assessment on the property to see how much the repairs are going to be, but they never specified how much they were going to cost the residents. And everybody got this special assessment bill in the mail for $30,000, and it's just something she can't do. So she didn't want to, go into full foreclosure process, but if she doesn't pay those special assessments, she's going to have to be foreclosed on. And of course, she has to disclose, if she puts it on the open market, that there is this $30,000 special assessment from the HOA. So, most people don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole unless they're going to get a huge reduction in price. She had bought it at the top of the market, and now the market is adjusting, and there's not as many home buyers out there. And who wants to take on a bill like that? So she's going to have to take it out of the proceeds, and she hasn't gained any equity in that condo that she purchased. If anything, it's depreciated in value since the height of the bubble. So now she is going through the short sale process. She's hoping that the bank accepts it so she can move on with her life. People always ask me, by the way, if a short sale is better than a foreclosure. I would tell you to talk to your financial advisor, but in most cases, a short sale falls off of your credit report or is less harmful to your credit report than a foreclosure is. But within 7 years, usually you're going to be able to buy a house. I've had people in both situations, and it usually was between 7 to 10 years, they were able to buy a home again down the road. So, I want everybody to be clear. If this is a situation that you're in, do not be embarrassed by it. Not everybody, but there are many, 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 many people, even in the most luxury homes, that have things like this happen to them. It's not your fault. Just Go through the process. Don't be embarrassed. Let your real estate agents and your real estate professionals help you. Don't hide information from them, because that's all it's going to do is make your process selling your home even worse. If you're in the foreclosure process or you're behind on your payments, please let your real estate agent know. That's just my little service announcement. All right, let's talk about, HOAs are scary, man. They are very scary. If you guys have any questions within the and during this time that we talk about what we're going to talk about today, please put it in the chat. And we will get to those questions shortly.
I would like to start off by saying happy birthday to Overjoyed. It is her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Overjoyed. I'm so glad that you're here and spending your birthday with us. I feel honored. I feel very honored. I hope everybody, the 133 of them, will wish Overjoyed a happy birthday.
And we do have a question from Forever DC. He asked, parents' past house needs work in Texas. Bros to give away, but I'm not sure that he meant bros, or they meant bros. I'm sorry. That combined with the market will get nothing. Best to invest some money, paint flooring at minimum, or do baths and kitchens too. When is the best time?
So if you're looking, I don't know if you're like what process you're in as far as like with your parents have passed away. Have you gone through that whole settlement part of it? Because that can take a long time where you have to go through all that. Once you've done that, always spring and summer is the best time to sell. If you're not if you're wanting to sell and sell fast, paint and flooring is always going to be your best bet. It's going to be your best, cheapest route, right? But if you're wanting to get the max amount of profit from your investment, then you want to go into the kitchens and bathrooms. If you're just wanting to sell it quick, just do the flooring and paint. And then price it competitively. I would also tell you that if you really want to think about it, you have a piece of property there. Is it possible that you could turn this into an income producing property for everybody in your family and turn it into a rental? So you guys could create a little company within yourselves and then have a rental for yourself. So that way you guys have an income producing property. I would consider that, look into that as well. But the cheapest route, carpet, flooring. And then if you wanted to go the more expensive route, you can do kitchens and bathrooms. I will tell you this, that the amount of money that sometimes goes into remodeling kitchens and bathrooms, you may not get that back when you go to sell it because it's so incredibly expensive to redo those things. Now, you can always give it a little freshen up, clean out the hardwares, update the faucets. Those are very inexpensive updates that you can do to a kitchen. But I always say flooring paint. That'll make any lipstick on a pig look good. Yep. All right, here we go. Redfin says housing market bubble could deflate this year. Real estate firms predict major changes on the horizon for mortgage rates and housing prices. I still say mortgage rates are going to hit in the 8s. That's just my crystal ball. I have there's nobody saying that. I just think that. Over the past few years, home buyers have faced a volatile, unpredictable housing market. Who knew? With home prices remaining high and the mortgage rates stubbornly elevated, many Americans have put their home ownership plans on hold, awaiting better market conditions. Market stagnation and broader economic uncertainty have further dampened buyer confidence, leading experts to anticipate a sluggish spring season. While inventory is finally increasing over weak demand, it kept sales subdued. Now, what did I tell you? Was it, I don't know, maybe 5 weeks ago? I said this spring and summer is going to be dead. It's going to be dead. Earlier hopes for a strong housing recovery in 2025 have faded as economic instability, fluctuated mortgage rates, continued to dampen expectations and renewed buyer demand. I heard somebody say that a bunch of new first-time home buyers, they just pulled out. They just said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable at my job. I don't feel comfortable on a lot of things. I'm not going to do it. So although the outlook for the second half of the year remains uncertain, many experts predict that ongoing challenges weighing on the market since 2022 will persist. What do you guys feel? You think it's however, Redfin, well, Eddie, you just scrolled right past that. All right. However, Redfin anticipates 2025 housing sales being a bright spot on an otherwise challenging housing market. I think Redfin is crazy. Go ahead. home buyers will see price reductions for the first time in years, which is good. And for the past few years, dwindling housing supply has fueled a competitive housing market, driving up demand and home prices with it. However, more sellers are listing their homes, and the time listings spent on the market is rising. So this is an opportunity if you're looking for a house. And you got to remember, if they bought their house in, like, let's just say they bought their house in 2020 or 2019 or 2018, they saw a record amount of equity dumped in their house. So go in low. I mean, what's the worst you can do? You're going to offend them. Who cares? You know, like that was, even though they say, oh, I lost $50,000. You didn't lose $50,000. You had equity at that time when it was $50,000 more, and the market has dictated a different price. So that's what your house is worth today. So anyways, go in low if you're going to make an offer. Experts expect home prices to stay flat and fall 1% year over year by the fourth quarter. Redfin economists found that there are 34% more sellers than buyers in the market, creating a surplus of over 500,000 homes. That is not a bad thing, especially since we have an affordability crisis. It's over 5 million homes we're short, so that takes out about 500,000 homes. And that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. This shift creates a strong buyer's market for the first time since 2013. And it's going to depend on where you're at. A strong buyer's market, not in everybody's market. Yep. Peter says, my markets are frozen. Buyers are like unicorns. Wow. Really? That's strange. Thoughts on the market in Texas, depending on where you are in Texas. So like, I know that like the DFW area still has a real estate moving. It isn't as in sticker shock as, let's just say, Austin, Texas. They've had more price adjustments, but you got to remember too, they were one of those markets that hit all-time highs week after week after week after week. It couldn't sustain itself forever, you know? Not only that, on top of it all, and I've always maintained this, and I continually will maintain this, if you live in an area that has a bunch of new home construction and you're competing with other brand new homes in your area, you're going to see home prices drop even further because home builders do not want to hang on to their supply of homes. They have stopped building in a lot of areas. My husband talks to home builders all the time. Even in our local area here, they have stopped building because they're unsure of what's going to happen. They notice that home buyers aren't coming through as much as they used to, and now they want to get rid of the stock that's on the books right now. So whatever they've got, they're giving more incentives. They're giving their own like interest rates. They're buying down points. They're giving builder allowances for upgrades, anything to get those houses off their books, because they have economic uncertainty as well, because they don't know how much some of their building materials are going to cost in the future. They can't pencil that out because everything keeps changing and flip-flopping every other week. So it's going to be interesting to see a year from now how this is going to look. But let's get back to the article. Proud Liberal 24 says our market in Northern Virginia is still in multiple contracts, building more over asking price. Yes. And that's what I was saying in certain markets. Like if you were to talk to somebody in Miami right now or Tampa, they'd say, oh my gosh, this feels like 2008 all over again. But then if you were to talk to somebody in like New Jersey or Connecticut, they're like, we are still multiple offers. The Sun Belt is feeling the heat a lot more than the northern states, literally and figuratively. Although buyers regain bargaining power, many home buyers are still waiting on the sidelines, driving overall sales down. Redfin notes that now is the time for hesitant buyers to take the plunge. If you're going to take the plunge, though, and you happen to live in a northern state, man, ask lower than you were imagining. See how low they'll go. We know that there's room for negotiation right now. That's the best way to take advantage of the challenging market. And the sooner you buy, the sooner you start building equity. But what if you buy and it keeps going down? You know what? I hear this all the time. What do you do if you buy now, and let's just say you bought it for $200, and a year from now, it's now worth $180. You didn't lose $20,000. I know in your brain, you're like, oh my gosh, the market's so... Were you planning on moving? If you're not planning on moving, it didn't lose $20,000. you only lose that money if that's what it's worth when you go to sell your house, right? And I mean, I saw that during the crash last time. People were like, "Oh my gosh, I just lost $30,000 on my house." I'm like, "Oh, you're planning on selling?" Well, no. And I'm like, "You didn't lose 30,000 then?" Well, I mean, no, you didn't. Like, unless you're selling, you didn't lose that money. It's all like kind of imaginary money. It doesn't mean that just yet until you need it, right? Until you need it. Still building in central North Carolina, apartments and houses. Is central North Carolina some of the areas that were affected by recent storms? I mean, they kind of need those buildings and apartments and houses as well, right?
And also understand that apartments are a year and a half to 2 years in the making. So those apartments, the complexes, you can't see that. It's too close.
It's a spider.
Ah, there it is. Coming in.
It's an itty bitty spider. He's so little. Hi, friend.
So just know that the apartment complexes were set up about a year and a half to 2 years ago. It takes that long to build those. Then also with houses, what you're seeing a lot of builders do, from what I've heard, is
build to rent.
Like you said, keeping exactly what's on the book. So they have those properties already developed and they've already set for those. A lot of those houses that you are seeing being built right now are purchased a few months ago.
Or they're build to rent.
Yeah. So
there's lots of build to rent right now.
Yes, but we're about a quarter behind on, when those were built, when those are being built. So
right, because it's years in advance before they get the permitting, before they ever scrape the ground. They'll pull permits, never even intending to build. They just pull the permit just so they have it. Redfin always going to tell you to take the plunge. Only take the plunge if you really want to buy a house, Comment: the gap between home prices and monthly payments that people can make is just too big. Yep. Most houses for sale are not going to sell. And that is the problem, because wages do not match what mortgage payments are today. When you look at the interest rates, and I know, and this always burns my butt, right? Because I did a poll out there and they say, "Oh, home affordability is back because interest rates are down." Are you out of your mind? When the median price home is over $400,000, the median income does not afford a $400,000 house, and wages have not matched what home prices have increased to for the median incomes. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The median house today was a luxury home 20 years ago, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house is now a luxury, and it shouldn't have been. That used to be what used to be the starter home for the little family, just starting out, or the single person just starting out, or newly divorced person just starting out, is now somebody's second or third home that they can possibly afford. That's why the price of people, or the age of people buying homes today, is now in their 40s and 50s to buy their very first home, because that's who can afford it. That's who can afford it now. It's insanity. Yep. The spider's lonely. He just wants to eat some bugs. I didn't kill him. He was little. He's going around here. He's playing with Biggie Smalls right now, actually. He's over here with Biggie Smalls. He has friends. So, yeah, he was little. I'm not going to worry about a little bug. I just had this sprayed too. This is so funny. I had the bug meeting here on Friday. Yep. Eric the Blue says, I think we may end up in an apartment overbuild here in Denver in the next year or so. There are several massive apartment buildings going up in the walking distance. So at one point last year, they were maybe it was a year and a half ago, they were really all in on multifamily building. Like all the builders, all the speculators were like multifamily, meaning apartment complexes and condominiums. They have pulled back from that since then. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, those projects have already been in the works, like Eddie had said. It takes a long time before they ever get living in
when you see occupancy rates in the 60s, and that's because people are moving from one apartment complex to the newer one. That's when you've seen an overbuild. Right.
Yep. But and people know this probably. Tell me if you heard this before. Some investors intentionally leave units vacant so they can use it as a tax deduction and saying that they have a higher vacancy rate. And that way they can use that as a depreciation in their asset. Has anybody heard that before? I certainly have. I know people have done it. So I'm interested to see if anybody else had heard that before.
We have a question from Mona. Question: does anyone know if a house qualifies for property tax exemption if it's in a trust?
That is going to depend on your state. So everybody's state has a different property exemption format law that's in existence. Like some states will allow for property tax exemption altogether for veterans. Some of them give them for discounts. Some of them will not do it for a trust. Some of them will. That it will depend on the state that you are in. If you need any clarification on there, just call the tax assessor's office. Don't tell them who you are. Just say, if a house is in a trust, just ask them a blank question and see what happens. But I would call your local tax office in your area, the county that you're in, to see if there is a tax exemption. And if there's something you need to do to file it. Because like here in the state of Louisiana, we actually have to go up to the office and show them our closing documents in order to file homestead here. But in other states, it's automatic as soon as you buy a house. So just make sure you do that if you have to do that if it's in a trust. I hope I answered that question. Mortgage rates will remain a roadblock to affordable housing through 2025. You see, they think it's all about the interest rates. It's not about just the interest rate. The price of housing is too much for some people, even if it was at zero, and they're just working regular jobs. Like even if it was at zero, how many people could afford a $400,000 house with 30-year fixed rate payments? And you still got your insurance and your taxes, which isn't going down either. We're in a kerfuffle, not kerfunkle. I made up a word. All right. While inventory, list prices, and home buyer negotiation power has improved, crucial part of the housing formula has not. Where is the negotiating power when the houses are still too expensive? Anyways, mortgage rates were initially forecasted to fall to 6% at the end of 2025, but that figure has shaped up to closer to 7%. Redfin analysts expect mortgage rates to hover around 6.8% throughout the end of the year. I still say they're going to be closer to the 8s, but I'm no mortgage expert. But that's what my jelly gut says, my gurgly guts. While many hope for a more significant drop in mortgage rates this year, lower housing prices and greater buyer power will still allow home buyers to get a better deal in recent years. Mortgage rates are still high due to major economic concerns, named tariffs, while driving up the prices of goods discouraged from the Fed cutting the rates and rising U.S. budget deficit, while causing analysts to downgrade the country's credit. Can I just tell you too that the thing with the tariffs, that hasn't gone away. They still don't understand how it's going to affect home building. And that's why a lot of home builders have decided to wait it out until they know exactly how much things are going to cost them. Because it's hard to make projections for housing and even price housing, future housing, if you don't know how much things are going to cost. Things keep flip-flopping all the time. Buyers concerned about elevated mortgage rates may want to consider striking while the iron is hot and refinancing their mortgage when rates do eventually fall. Oh, Eddie, don't forget to show that one article from I think it was The Wolf. There's a bunch of charts. I want to show everybody this. Yes, they do that in New York City. Yes, they keep them vacant so they can get a tax deduction from it. You're right, Sly all day. You're correct. The investors will. I've seen in New York, was it in Greenwich Village? They have whole buildings, whole entire brownstones completely empty. I was like, that should be illegal. I mean, I know it's not. You can't tell anybody to do with their property, but I don't think they should be allowed to do that. Yeah, Miss M says. I'm sorry, Mrs. M. What is a deed transfer upon death, and what needs to be done once a person passes? That is one area I will honestly admit I have no idea. I don't know how the deed transfer works in your state, and I don't know what needs to be done for that person after they pass. That is not something I'm very familiar with. I think it's like probate you have to go through. I'm just not that familiar with it. That's not my expertise in real estate. Great question, just not my expertise.
Recommend talking to an attorney?
Yeah, well, of course, talk to a real estate attorney or even a title attorney and inherit it, or someone that's an expert in inheritance. That's what I would do. Prairieville says talk to an attorney. It says talk to an attorney, and it depends on if there is a trust or will. If no trust, you'll have to go through probate first. It can be costly and take a very long time. Yep, that is correct. That is correct. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that too much. If you guys are getting into that age, I would consider talking to a financial advisor about putting your home in a trust. It really does make it much easier for the other families involved. If you're passing on real estate or anything like that, I would talk to somebody that can help you put that home into a trust. I'm not saying to do it. That's not financial advice. I'm just saying go talk to somebody that knows better than me. I've seen it on the other side where people and family members have had to deal with that, and there was no will, and it became a real headache for everybody involved. And inheritance works a lot different in every single state. Louisiana happens to be the strangest one I ever heard of. Like the husband passes away. The spouse doesn't get the house. All their portion, everything that was in the husband's name, even though they were in it together, that portion goes to the kids. And so she has to ask the kids to sell the house, and they get a portion of the proceeds once the house is sold, unless they sign over their possession of the portion of the inheritance. Right? Wild, right? So Madeline says, what does the rate of unemployment and continued layoffs in areas dictate the real estate market? This is such a great question. Eddie, you might want to show those charts on the Wolf real estate thing. Or was it Wolf? Okay, so let's look at jobs. So I don't know if you know, this is a really good indicator of what's happening in the mortgage, of what's happening in the housing market, what happens to actual mortgage lenders. Because right before the housing bubble the last time, you saw mortgage lenders starting to lay people off. And then sure enough, then all of a sudden, boom. Then it all kind of started falling apart. So let's scroll down to the first graph. Please. All right. Employ non-bank real estate lenders by the thousands. Okay, so the first one is bubble 1, and the second one is bubble 2. So look where we're at. Yep. And I have said, and everybody knows this, that when unemployment starts hitting numbers that are scary, right? We're going to see a lot more houses that are in the short sale or even foreclosure or just going up for sale for that matter, right? They might have some equity. The worse the jobs market gets, the more we're going to see home sales go up, more houses for sale. And in turn, that helps you as a home buyer be able to purchase a home for a lot less money. So it's possible, as you see here, that you see the last housing bubble and the first housing bubble, how much mortgage lenders were out of a job. And we're seeing a lot more mortgage lenders be out of a job. There's like, who's going to refinance now? If you bought a house in 2020, why would you refinance? You're sitting on some people are sitting on 2.75 interest rate on their house. Would you sell? The only reason you would sell is if the insurance got too high or you lost your job. Yep. Can we go to the next chart, please, Eddie? Please, sir? These are the ones that have done the most. And this is at their average mortgage, how much they list them for. 366,000 mortgages. All right, next chart. Scroll down. Oh, look, the credit union's on there, Eddie. We used to be at the Federal Credit Union. It was the best. Yeah. Scroll down. Scroll. All right. Employees at mortgages and non-mortgage brokers by the thousands. Look at the housing. During the last time, it was 57% of people lost their jobs. This time it's at 36%. But one of those things I want you to consider when you're thinking about this, that they lost their jobs not because housing has necessarily taken it over. A lot of these people have lost their jobs because AI has taken it over. And, you know, a lot of people in like statistics and marketing and all that, it's taken over because of AI. And they lost their job due to that. It wasn't because the home prices are marketing or they're writing less loans. It's AI that has removed their job. Next chart, please. Thank you. All right. Existing single family homes and condos sold this year. We got a big drop in 2023 and 2024. I have to know, would you buy a condo? You know, like, would you buy a condo? Even back in my day when Eddie and I were looking at our very first home, we were pushed hard to look at condos. And they were like, oh, you know, if you buy a house, it's going to cost you $135,000. But if you buy a condo, you can pay $80,000 and you'll be able to live there. And, you know, it's just like owning a piece of real estate. And I'm like, but then you have fees on top of it. Oh, they're not that much. And I'm like, I don't want to live in an apartment. You know, like in my brain, because Eddie and I had been living in an apartment for years. I'm like, I just don't want to live in an apartment. Yeah, we don't have to mow the lawn, but I don't know if I want to buy an apartment. So, purchase mortgage applications are slightly up since last year around this time, but they're starting to dip down again. There are people that are willing to get approved for a loan. Doesn't mean they're going to go buy a house. This is the weekly index. Look at that. We're back on the rise, but you're always on a rise in the spring and the summertime. They're just not willing to pull the trigger though. Refinance mortgage applications index this week. Who would refinance right now? I mean, like you would have to be in some kind of financial situation to refinance now, unless your interest rate is like above what, 8%? Like, why would you need to refinance? Unless you just needed to get the equity out of it. It's the only thing I can think of. All right, that's it. Those are all our charts. Yeah. See, Kenny says it. Kenny's right. Condo equals an apartment. Dave said, housing bubble in New York on Long Island. Not really. The fat cats in Comac are still selling their homes for $750,000. I don't know that area that well. My brother just moved from Manhattan. He lived on Roosevelt Island. He just moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, downtown. And he saved himself half the rent he used to pay on Roosevelt Island. I'm sure you already knew that, though. Eric DeBlue
says, hey, Christina, I really enjoyed your tiny video or this week's video. I watched last week on affordable states and homes. Many people could afford the homes you showed. The question is, can people live in the locations?
That was the reason I featured those specific locations, is because I wanted to make sure that somebody could get a job in those locations. That's why I highlighted in that video from last week the jobs that were available. Whenever I'm looking at a city, right, and they have affordable homes, it doesn't mean they have good jobs in that area. So in order for me to highlight those specific states, I had to know that there was a growing economy, and it wasn't even, it isn't centered around one specific industry to function. So if you think about it, like if you think about Detroit, for instance, it was all around one specific industry, and that was cars. Once the car manufacturers left Detroit, then that city has failed or has been failing ever since, and is having a hard time coming back because there isn't enough industry to support what's, the whole entire city. So in order for me to have featured any of the states and the cities that were mentioned in that video, they had to have a growing economy for that city as well. And the property taxes had to be not ridiculous. I just couldn't get everything, I couldn't say everything I wanted to say. Originally with that video, when I first edited it, was 30 minutes long. So I got it down, I think it just at 20 minutes. But man, I'm wordy. Sometimes I talk way too much. Shocking. I know. I'm sure you're blown away that I talk too much. Don't forget to do the poll, guys. There's a poll question there. Make sure you answer the poll, and we'll get to that at the end. I know that there were some people that probably called in this week, and for some reason I had a moment, and I sat down and I went, oh my gosh, I didn't check the call logs this week. So if you had put in a call last week, I will make sure it is at the top of the hour next week for your phone call. If you want to leave a message for next week and you want to either call in a comment or call in a question, you can at 888-255-0197. Is that right, Eddie? Yeah, that was right. 888-255-0197. Man, that's a good memory. Remember when we used to remember everybody's phone numbers? I can't even tell you my parents' phone number. That's terrible. They've lived here for 11 years. I don't know their phone number. It just says mom on my phone and I hit the button.
Grease Monkey has a question.
Okay.
They ask, can you negotiate your real estate agent's commission? If so, what is the lowest percentage you can negotiate?
As low as they're willing to accept. It is 100% negotiable. Now, some brokerages will say, we will not accept X amount less than that, right? But yes, the real estate commission is negotiable, 100%. And it's as negotiable as much as the person is willing to accept. You can negotiate, $500, right? You can hire a real estate agent just to do certain aspects of the real estate transaction. You can say, hey, look, I just want you to show me houses. I will pay you $50 commission per house you show me. You can negotiate that. You could say, hey, I don't need anything from you other than doing the paperwork. So I'm willing to pay you X amount for that specific role of you being a real estate agent. And that all should be negotiated and put in a contract format that all parties sign. So there is an understanding on how much commission or payment that real estate agent is going to get. But yes, it's 100% negotiable. And by the way, like a lot of people don't realize this, it's always been negotiable. Always, always, always. I know that that lawsuit over a couple of years now that went through, people were thinking, oh yeah, the real estate agents are not going to get paid anymore. Now they have to negotiate their commissions. They always did. Nothing's changed except for more paperwork. That's all that's ever changed. So yes, however low they'll accept is that's as low the commission that you're willing to negotiate. Yep. Just called your number and wow, that AI is impressive. Thank you. So if you guys don't know, I know that somebody asked this last week. It is an AI voiceover that sounds like me, but it is a robot. Sometimes she's a little sassy. All you do is just leave a message with her. Sometimes she'll answer your questions, but that doesn't mean that I won't answer your question live on the call for next week. I take those phone calls, I strip off the AI Christina voice, and then I put them on the screen. That's how it typically happens. I just forgot to check this week, and I don't know why I forgot. I think Thursday messed me up. I took my kid into the airport at 2:00 in the morning, and I was like a zombie the rest of the day. So yeah, next week, I promise the calls will be answered and we will put them on the screen for you. MH08 says Pittsburgh is a beautiful city. I happen to agree. I have family from there as well. If you guys haven't checked out Pittsburgh, go ahead and check it out. It's a surprising city. I know it's in what they call the Rust Belt. People forget about like Cleveland too. Cleveland, Ohio, they have a little bit more rough weather. But it's a beautiful city too. And they have really good jobs out there and they have affordable homes. some of the cities that we forget, it's not the newest, latest, hippest city that has the most affordable homes. Sometimes it's the well-established cities. And when you go to those well-established cities, they also make them walkable cities. So you can walk to the corner market. So you can walk to your local stores because they're right at the end of your neighborhood. Those modern new cities in the South, they're not designed that way. We don't even have sidewalks. Where I live in the brand new neighborhoods, there's no sidewalks. It is road and house. That's it. And then even if you had sidewalks, as soon as you get out of your neighborhood, there's no sidewalks to walk anywhere. Even if the store is right around the corner, there's no way you would have to go on a busy road to get to wherever you're getting to. We have not designed the world to be convenient for walking. We've designed it for cars. But if you go to an older city, a more established city, you're going to see that it was designed more for people that didn't have vehicles. Just saying. If you're looking for a new job and a new adventure and you're looking for somewhere affordable to live, start looking at those Rust Belt cities. You'd be surprised. I was shocked because, I've been looking for my kid. She's in her 20s. She wants to be able to afford a home. She wants something different. And it's something you guys should be looking at. Just saying.
Hey, Smoostar has a question. It says, Lance Lambert just said 2026 will see even more houses for sale than this May's report. And experts report home prices fell month over month for March and April and are projected to end 2025 minus 1.7% decline. Thoughts?
If we keep going on the trajectory that we've been going on, I would not be surprised if those numbers are come to fruition. We've seen an increase in home prices, some, 2-3% everywhere. Even when the market was stagnant. I said, like I said, about 5 weeks ago, that the summer housing market's going to be dead. And and people, oh no, it's not. This is just the start of the season. School hasn't even let out yet. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the temperature of people's opinions on how they feel about things makes a huge difference. Just like we talk about the builder sentiment, the builder sentiment has been in the toilet. It has been in the toilet since the beginning of the year. I take that back. At the beginning of the year, they were very confident, and that confidence has gone out the window. And the consumer confidence is just as bad. And we are people that are we're sensitive to things, big disruptions in market conditions, whether that's with jobs, the price of groceries, all those things factor into our bigger decisions, like buying a house. I do not see it being a very busy summer season. I think we're just on the cusp of what could possibly happen in the future. Does that mean a housing crash? I don't know. I just don't know. There's so much pent up demand for younger people to buy homes, even people that have just been sitting on the sidelines. But if the conditions continue and we see job numbers decline, then that is very possible we could see a decline in home prices. But it would be very area specific. If you're taking all of the real estate market as a whole, I mean, the houses are still flying off the shelves up north. I mean, there's still multiple offers in, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey. Those areas are, you would think it was all in 2022 again. But those Rust Belt areas are going to be hurting. And how much are they going to bring down the market over nationally? I don't know. Time will tell. I think that's a good number though. 1.7. That seems reasonable to me in my brain. Yep. Minnie says, I've negotiated my agent down 1.5% on my house, then that I sold, then 2% on the lot I sold. Oh yeah. See, I mean, everything's negotiable. Here in Louisiana, it's always been negotiable. Like everybody was like, oh, agents shouldn't get 6%. Well, it was never 6%. Never, unless you were the agent that was representing the buyer and the seller, and you possibly could have gotten 6%. I mean, I always thought it was a gift if I got a 3% on my side. I was like, oh my gosh, because I never even looked at the commissions. I just wanted to sell the person the house that they wanted. And it was always a surprise when I was doing the paperwork. I'm like, oh, this one's at a 3%. Or if I got like an agent bonus or something like that. It was always just a nice surprise. I never looked at those. I know there's agents that do. I'm not saying that everybody does that, but I mean, I just wanted to sell the clients a house that they were happy with. So everything's negotiable. Everything. And another thing too is like, even during that time, like when someone was purchasing a house and something happened and like, let's just say the seller couldn't afford to fix the air conditioning unit, I would work with the selling agent and say, hey, look, why don't we split the cost, get the air conditioning fixed so we can get this house closed for these people. And then that's what we would take that out of the commission so the house could close for these people. We did that kind of stuff almost every single transaction, especially for buyers. What were you going to say, Eddie?
Who's on first has a question. What do you think of this? A friend rents 2-bedroom from a corporate landlord, 45 minutes from Denver. If she doesn't renew on an 18-month lease at $1,800 a month to month, rent will be $6,000 a month. So if they don't lease at 18 months, then their lease on a month to month will go up to $6,000.
I don't know who would sign that. I don't know. I mean, like, corporate landlords, they're not my friends. I don't, corporate investing in as a whole is almost anything private equity gets their hands on, they ruined. They always do great stuff at the beginning. Everything looks like it's coming up roses, but their whole business plan is to strip as much equity out of that investment as possible and make as much money out of it as possible. They ruined everything. They've ruined hospitals and they've ruined housing and they've ruined affordable housing like mobile homes and mobile home parks. So if you're the individual investor and you're wanting to do something like that, I don't know. I personally don't think that's right. That's just me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but I wouldn't do that.
Solely 846 has a question.
Okay.
Christina, what are your thoughts on investors wanting to buy your home without staging, etc.?
It depends on who the investor is. If it's one of those ones like 1-800 We Buy Ugly Houses or something like that, they offer very low, and you may be able to get a heck of a lot more money on the open market. Even in the worst markets. So Eddie and I sold our house in Florida at the start of the housing crash last time, in 2007. It was the beginning of the housing bubble popping there. And we have investors calling us all the time because they saw our listing on Zillow saying, hey, we will offer this amount of money. And I'm like, I can get more than that. Oh no, the market, They try to trick you and tell you that your house isn't worth what, it isn't worth that much. I would say to you, I would talk to a few real estate agents, interview them, ask them how much they think your house will sell for, and tell them to be very realistic with their thought process on it. Like, how many days do you think it will be on the market? What do you think the best price to sell it at is? And what do you think it will sell for if it's sold in that amount of time? You want to ask that kind of thing. And then take those same offers that, these investors are calling you and saying they're willing to give to you. They're trying to play on your emotions. They want to see how nervous you are about selling your house. You'll see a lot of people that are like wholesale investors. That's what they do. They hear of a family member that passed away. Oh, we'll buy it. We'll buy your house for X amount of dollars. It's not worth that much. You don't have to do anything to fix it. We'll take care of all of that. And all they did was, maybe they painted the outside or they just replaced the roof and then they sold it for $40,000 more than they purchased it for. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of those times that real estate agents are on your side more than an investor coming in and saying, hey, don't worry about it. We'll take care of everything. You just go ahead and sign those papers over to me. We got you covered. We're going to take care of you. They're only looking to take care of themselves. Just saying.
Suzanne has a question. I live in Central Florida, Marion County. This is a ridiculous myth. Unless you live within 10 miles of the coast, your insurance rate is pretty much normal for the US. I'm paying $1,100 for my insurance.
Wow, you're very fortunate. I think that depends on the county that you live in and in what area. Because I know that people that live in Castleberry and Altamont Springs have seen massive increases in their insurance payments for their homeowners insurance payments. And I know what you're saying about the coastal areas, because I happen to live nowhere near the coast. I live in Baton Rouge. Like the likelihood of a Cat 5 hurricane or 4 hurricane direct hitting my area is pretty low, right? Our homeowners insurance has not doubled but tripled in my area. So we used to pay $1,000, then it was $3,000. Now it's $7,000 for homeowners insurance, and it will continue to go up. To say it's like a big giant myth that homeowners insurance is going up in Florida, I mean, it may not for you in your area, but it certainly is for tens of thousands of people and residents in Florida, to the point where they can't even afford to live there anymore, and they have no choice but to sell their home because they can't get insurance on it. Super chat. Thank you. Thank you so much for the super chat. For a house that needs repairs and says not qualified for any type of loan, must be cash transaction. I hate to ask this question, but is there any way to buy it without direct cash? Ooh. Well, no, because the thing is in order to secure a loan, unless you had let me just put it this way. If you had your own equity line of credit that you could purchase it for cash, yeah. But for any kind of 30-year fixed rate secured mortgage, they have to protect their investment. So they're not going to do that unless they can look at the house. Like FHA, if there's a house that needs a ton of repairs, they're probably going to say no. VA is going to look at the house and say no. So I would say you would have to get a specific type of credit line secured so you could buy it cash from the seller themselves. But that's a great question. I know that some people have done that. You can bridge the equity from one house into the next house that you're purchasing, as long as that house is being sold. And some banks will do those bridge loans. Not all, but some will. And then, like I said, if you have a HELOC, you could use that to purchase it. But, you got to look at the interest rate on that and how long you're going to be able to how long you're going to have to wait to pay it back. Just saying, the interest rate on that is probably going to be a lot higher than a typical mortgage as well.
So Meddling Kimbro asked, what do you know about 15-minute cities? In Austin, Texas, the outdoor malls are not renewing leases and have plans to convert the areas to a small city.
I read something else about Eddie. Didn't you send me an article? You sent me the article about Elon Musk turning his little cities and telling residents they're going to turn them into they have to reuse their home for something else. They're rezoning it. I know that Austin is a walkable city. I don't know much about what they're doing as far as renewing the leases and the plans to convert areas in that small city. I don't know about that, but I know who will. That's Jeremy Knight from the Knight Group. He has a channel here on YouTube, and he talks all things Austin. That is Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group. He'll have the answer for you. I just don't know. Eddie and I went to Austin. It's a lovely city. What did they say? It's something about being a weird city. I didn't find it to be weird. I thought it was really cool. Very expensive. Shockingly expensive. I always thought Austin was affordable. Yep. This was the article they were talking about. Elon Musk SpaceX company town is reporting and notifying its residents they may lose their right to continue using their property amid zoning push. So they're going to rezone their properties and tell them they can't stay there anymore. They'll turn them into mixed use or something else. I haven't read the whole article completely, but this is out of Fortune magazine. So, yep. You can go ahead and let everybody, if you want to put that link into the chat, you can. Yep. Proposed zoning ordinance for mixed use properties, by the way. If you happen to be an investor or you're looking at buying a house, mixed use properties are fantastic because they're easier to sell to anybody. If you have a mixed use property, you can sell that to somebody that wants to have an at-home business. It's much, much easier. We have one of our rental properties is a mixed use property. And I'm like, when we put it up for sale, I'm interested to see who buys it. Is it going to be the family because it is a single family house, or is it going to be because we have right next door, there's a burger place, and right next to there is a bunch of strip offices. So I'm interested to see who purchases it, and if they purchase it, are they going to turn it into a business? I'm surprised. I'll see what happens. I'll let you know. Eddie, after this question, I wanted to get to the poll. V-Man says, how many homes do you believe sold after the prices went up? Those are the homes I believe will be in trouble due to the high payments in the 3,000 and ups. What do you think? V-Man, this is what I want to tell you. Do you remember in 2023 and in 2024, all these real estate agents, investor dudes, lenders, mortgage brokers, all these people said, date the rate, marry the house, date the rate, marry the house, buy the house now. In a couple of years, when the rates go down, you can just go ahead and refinance. Don't you worry about it. Just date the rate, get the house that you want. How many of those people are sitting there probably not answering the phone right now because they were told in a couple of years, don't worry about it. Interest rates are going to come down again. This is just a blip in the market. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and marry the house. This rate will disappear. How many of you think those people are ticked at this point? I think there's people that are in a predicament, especially as property taxes have gone up and insurance has gone up. And what a lot of people, I'm hearing this, I know that we talked about this before, but I'll bring it up again. Some people bought a house in 2023, a brand new house, and they were never informed by the lender, the real estate agent, the sales office, the title company, that the property taxes for the first year that they were paying on their mortgage, that they had escrow in, was only for the land itself. It did not include the house. So then the following year when the tax bill came in, their escrows were short. And in some states, they were short tens of thousands of dollars because they were only paying property tax on the dirt. Now that the house is on there, they were $10,000 short. So if they have to make up for their missing escrow, and they have to fill their escrows for what they have anticipated for the next year. There's a lot of people in that boat. A lot of people. I think we're going to see a lot of variations of numbers shift as we go into 2020, the end of 2025 into 2026. I do believe that we're going to see an increase in foreclosures. Not this year. I don't think we're going to see it this year because it's a delayed statistic. I don't think we're going to see that until mid 2026. And everything that's happening now, we're not going to see the effects in the numbers on paper until 2026. What do you guys think? That's what I think. I think there's a lot more people that are out of a job than they're telling us. I think that's been the case since the pandemic. They use numbers, or they don't count people after so long. If they haven't found a job within 9 months, they're like, oh, well, they're no longer looking for a job, and they just take them off like they didn't exist. It makes their numbers look better than they do. And it's been like that since, I think since Clinton. They make those numbers look however they want to look. But you guys are in the real world and you see it in real time. I mean, I don't know how many people I've heard that have gotten laid off trying to find another job. Saw one person, I saw a video of somebody, they put in a job to 165 different applications, and they keep getting turned down. But then they find out that employer was never even trying to fill that job. Never even, they call them ghost jobs. And a lot of these people are trying to fill in these jobs, but they're not really there because they get a credit for bringing in more employees. They get You know, it's all about money. It's always about money. And that's what these companies do. All right. In your opinion, is the housing bubble about to pop? 29% of you said yes. 21% of you said no. But 35% of you, and I'm with you, in some markets, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I think in 2026, we're going to see some of those markets really pop. But 16% of you is not sure. Well, the best way to stay sure in 2025 and 2026 is stay informed with channels just like this, KristinaSmallhorn.com. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So every Sunday at 3:30, you can hang out with all of us in the chat and have your questions answered about your real estate market. All right. 77L Raz says, I think we need to be realistic with a private equity problem that has ballooned significantly. Yes. Tuesday's video that's coming out. I have a video that's coming out, and I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. It talks about private equity, but it also talks about, I call it affordable housing derangement syndrome, how people have all these great ideas for solving the affordability crisis, but it isn't necessarily the smartest ideas because it doesn't really solve the problem. And private equity is huge. It's a growing problem across the United States. You and I know this. Investors downplay it. Politicians love to use it as a ticket item to get them elected, but they never vote on it. The best thing that we can do as, individual people is stop them at the smallest level. So if you happen to live in a neighborhood now or a condo association now, you guys have power to stop private equity from taking over your condo association. You can write in your covenants that X amount of units can only be sold to private equity or corporations. You can write like only 20% can be owned by them, right? That is true of your homeowners association in your neighborhood. If you happen to live in a neighborhood that has a homeowners association, you can vote to make sure that there is a limit to how many homes can be used for rentals and how many can be sold to LLCs, Airbnb, LLCs, corporations, S corps, all of that. You can limit how many. And then if you're wanting to go bigger, but you can still go into your local planning and zoning, go to those meetings and say to them, yes, you're building this new neighborhood, but only make, let's just say 30% of that neighborhood build to rent, but the rest of the neighborhood must be for sale as single family homes in the area. You have that power, you have that negotiation power, and it starts at those little meetings right there in your local area. If you're trying to do it on a bigger, wide scale federal level, they have put out, I think I counted, I think it was 6 different bills. One of them was to stop corporate investing. Another one was to stop hedge fund buyouts. Another one was they all were to address the affordability crisis on a nationwide scale. And you know what those bills have done? They've done nothing but collect dust, and they've never been voted on. And I can assure you with every fiber of my being, they will never hit the floor of the House or the Senate, because those bills that were written by politicians that want to get elected. And they know darn well that their elections count on us as people, so it makes them look like they're doing something. But they also know that the people that represent the House and the Senate are never going to put that on the floor because their campaigns are paid for by those hedge funds and corporations. So it's all I feel like sometimes, everybody there should be a curtain that slams down and says, all right, act 2, because everybody's on stage and they're all lying to us, lying like dogs. The only thing we can do is in our local area. That's going to be the best thing we can do. On a national level, it's just not going to happen. Noreen says the folks who were laid off but are receiving severance, they aren't counted as unemployed. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Yep. And I always think those numbers are fudged. There's so many people that lost their job during the beginning of the pandemic, and the numbers I don't think were ever reflected on that. And then when, then the jobs, like they needed a bunch of people to come back, then they were all coming back. They were all coming back. And then they kept opening up all these jobs. It looked like there was tons of jobs out there for people to apply to. And it still looks like that, but the jobs don't exist. They're just not there. They'll have the same ad out there for the same exact job for the last 2 years. It's never intended for it to be filled, but it looks like there's jobs out there for people to get, but they're really not. Yeah.
DJ Yaga has a question.
What's that?
Ask, with all these new construction horror stories, what can consumers who want to build from scratch do loan-wise? What are some of the loan options available?
I'm not a lender, but I will tell you there you can get something called a new construction loan. So if you have a piece of property and you want to build your own house, you have to find your own home builder. And your home builder will know who to work with and how to work with them to be able to get paid to build your house. The home builder will take draws. Like they can't, let's just say it's going to cost you $350,000 to build your house. That home builder doesn't walk into the bank and say, give me the $350,000. That's not how that works. They have to do like certain steps. Like the bank will say, okay, we're going to give you, $40,000 to pour the cement, concrete slab and maybe some framing or whatever. But after that, we got to check it to make sure that you've done the work. And then we'll give you the next draw. And then they work that way. But yeah, talk to your lender. You can get something called a new construction loan and have that done. If it's a raw piece of land, you can roll in your land improvements in that as well, as long as it appraises for the amount that you're wanting to take out to build that house. But it takes a longer process. I'm not saying it's a simple process, but it's not unheard of, and it's not that difficult either. It just takes a little longer, a little bit more paperwork involved. Rented most of my life. Finally bought a house in my 50s. Best decision I've ever made. Fantastic. I'm proud of you. I don't know if you know this, but Grant Cardone says, don't ever buy a house. He says it's a depreciating asset. But you know what? You're the age of the average home buyer, first-time home buyer right now. People in their 50s. Did you know that? Wild, right? First-time home buyers, 52 years old. Yep. MHOA says private equity issues have been dealt with on a local level, and it should. Yeah, I think you're just having more success on a local level. You're just going to have a lot more success with dealing with private equity in your towns if you really nip it in the bud. I honestly, it's those HOAs, because those private equity hates HOAs, right? But how does a private equity firm take over an HOA? How do they handle that, right? What they do is they buy the most homes in that neighborhood. Then they have a majority vote in that neighborhood. And then they get to dictate how the HOAs run from there for moving forward, right? They love to do that in garden homes. And private equity is so insidious. Guess what they're buying next, right? They're not just buying up housing. They're buying into HOA management companies as well, right? So they're the ones that set the fines up and everything else. So now they've got their hands in that. And guess what private equity has their hands on top of that? They're getting into plumbing. They're getting into HVAC. They're getting into roofing. They're trying to buy up as many of those as well. They are trying to milk us dry as much as possible. And in a lot of cases, they're doing a darn good job. Me and private equity are not friends. And in the way it is proposed every single time, it's supposedly going to better it for us, the little guy. Oh, we're coming in. We're trimming everything out. We're getting rid of unnecessary waste so we could be more effective to you as a provider. Lie, 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 liar. Lie, 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 lie. What they've done with the HVAC companies is that they know that there's mom and pop HVAC companies. They purposely keep their rates really, really, really low so that the mom and pops can't afford to stay in business any longer. Once they scoop those guys up and now they own the whole entire market, then they just start raising those prices up and up and up. And then since they own that whole thing, there's no competition. and they collude with one another, by the way. If it was two property management companies or two HVAC system companies, they're like, hey, we're doing this for 500. Okay, well, I'll do it at 500 too. They work with each other. Yeah. Anyways, Christina, I wonder what is going to happen in 20 to 30 years from now. The groups that bought all these blocks of housing, when the properties are older, will they maintain them? Absolutely not. They're not going to maintain them. No, they don't do it now. So if you look at some of the biggest names at like Homes for Rent, Invitation Homes, there was that one out of Canada. I can't think of the name right now, but they always start off really well, right? They always start off very good. They're doing a fantastic job. They know how to take care of the houses. 5 years from now, when things start happening, you can't get them out there to repair that roof. The air conditioning unit that's been messed up has now, we're 1 month in and it's the middle of August. No, they're not in there for the interest of the people that are renting those houses. They're in it to make a buck. No. And that's what happens. With the bigger the firm, the more likely those homes are going to go into disrepair. Yep. Violet says, hey there, Christina and fam. Waiting for people to fall out of their homes and go homeless so we can buy their house is a disgusting game of musical chairs. I know. I was, back in, like I said, back in 2008, I had my real estate license. I learned how to do short sales, and watching people lose everything because a lender talked them into a stupid loan package, or they lost their job and they had no equity in their house what they were about to sell. It was devastating. It was absolutely awful. At that time, they had to encourage people to, buy the houses. They were giving first-time home buyer loans and, incentives, $6,000, $10,000. Please buy houses. We're not going to see that this time. We'll see more houses for sale, but we're not going to see people in that much despair unless they bought at the very, very height of the market. People that bought in 2021 or in 2022, they probably are sitting on a good nest egg of equity before they would have to go through that short sale or foreclosure process, unless they're super behind on their payments. If they're smart enough and they realize that they're in a situation and they're just trying to sell it very quickly before they lose their shirt, they're going to be fine. There's going to be a lot less despair because they do have a lot of equity in those homes in order to play with and bring down the home prices. I just don't see it happening the same way it did in 2008. That was, unless we have a huge drop off in the jobs market, I just can't see it happening any other way.
Who's on first has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the fundamentals of building permits?
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I want to paint or change toilets myself, I don't need a permit. What typically requires a permit for home improvements?
When you're modifying the structure of your home, you're going to need a permit. If you're digging in the ground, you're going to need a permit. That's what usually constitute as a permit. But every state has a different rule, and every county has a different rule. If you're changing anything electrical to your home, it's going to need a permit. But like Eddie and I got a whole house generator. We needed to have a permit for that because, first of all, they were digging in the ground, they were pouring a pad, and they were changing the structure of the house. Second permit that we needed, we were getting Cat 5 to this little tiny house. We were getting Cat 5 wiring. Was it Cat 5? Anyways, and electricity out here. Cat 6. Cat 6 wiring and electricity out to this little house. I wasn't going to do it with a freaking electric, like an extension cord, like some people would. I wanted to do it right. Had to get a permit for that because we had to dig in the ground. We had to go into the electrical. But as far as like painting the outside of the house, that shouldn't require a permit. You may have to ask permission from your HOA and they have to approve the color, but that has nothing to do with permits. Now, if you change the roof of your house, of course, that's going to need a permit because you're changing the structure of your house. That's what I'd say. My, what a big cup you have. Lawnmower says, I don't have big cups. He says, I'm just a really little person. The cups are normal size. I'm just really small. That's what he says.
Roofing is one of those things. Definitely check. Even when you change your roof, there's places in Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans, that you actually, if you're putting a brand new roof on, putting a brand new roof on, you have to get a permit.
Absolutely. In Ascension, don't you have to get a roofing permit if you're changing out here?
No.
Oh.
Not that I know of. I've never
Well, in
seen.
Florida, you do. In Florida, if you're changing out your roof, you got to get a permit. Yeah, anything that you do structurally to change your house, then you need a permit. Yeah, so Island Knight said, yep, the cup is normal. Christina's just super small. Hey, Maria, how are you? You guys, if you want to call in next week, because I forgot to do the calls, sorry. If you want to call in next week and you want to leave a message on the AI Christina robot call line, go ahead and do this. 888-255-0197. I will take those calls that you leave this week and we will talk about them next week. Even if you want to leave a comment or ask a question, the AI robot may say to you, oh, that's a great comment, but what do you have for questions? Just ignore her. You're not going to hurt my feelings. She's just a robot. It's fine. I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat, all the moderators, for keeping it clean this week. Fantastic. Thank you so much. If you want to get a hold of me, go to my website, go to KristinaSmallhorn.com. You hit one of the pink buttons and I will answer your real estate questions. If you need to book some time with me to talk about your real estate needs, that's fantastic. Fill that form out and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. If you want to share this podcast with your friends and family, you can go to anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Then look for Kristina Smallhorn, Real Estate for Everyone. And boom, there I am. You can share this week's episode tomorrow. Eddie uploads it first thing in the morning, and you can share that with your friends and family. If you feel the option to feeling a little kindness, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Eddie would love that. We'll give a little review of our podcast. Eddie always asks me to ask you, and I always feel uncomfortable about it. So I did it, Eddie. I'm not in trouble. Everybody, I hope you had a fantastic week. Thank you so much for spending the last hour and 16 minutes with me. And I can't wait to see you next week. If there's anything that happens in the news and it's real estate related, we'll be talking about it next week. All right, everybody. Bye-bye. Hello, June. Yeah, it's June 1st. Yep. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. Hope you don't get a case of the Mondays. So long.